A single text message, just 3 short words, was the last thing the world ever heard from the 5 people inside the Titan. All good here. They typed it a little after 10 in the morning, sitting in the dark, sealed inside a carbon fiber tube, sinking toward the wreck of the Titanic. On the ship far above them, the crew read those 3 words and felt relieved. Everything was fine. The dive was going exactly as planned. And then, a short while later, one more message came up through the water, and after that, nothing. No signal, no ping, no sound. The Titan simply stopped existing, somewhere in the black 2 miles down, and no one on the surface knew it yet. For the next 4 days, the whole world would search for a submarine that, it turned out, had been gone since the first morning. Today, I want to take you inside that final dive. Minute by minute, from the moment those 5 people climbed aboard on a bright June morning, to the last message, to the exact instant the ocean ended it. Not the search that came after, not the investigation, the dive itself. What was said, what went wrong, what those final moments actually looked like, as far as the evidence can tell us. Because when you follow it in real time, when you sit in that descent with them, you understand this disaster in a way the headlines never let you. And I'll tell you now. There is a detail near the end of this timeline in the very last message that almost no one noticed at the time. And once you understand what it might mean, you can't unsee it. Before we go down there, one quick thing, and I mean it. This channel is building the complete, honest record of the OceanGate disaster and the great tragedies of the sea, told properly and dug out of the real investigations. If that's what you're here for, take 1 second right now and hit subscribe. It's free, it's the single biggest thing you can do to help this channel. And it means you'll be here for the rest of this story. So subscribe, turn on the bell, and let's go back to that morning. It's the 18th of June, 2023. A cold, grey morning in the North Atlantic, about 400 miles off the coast of Newfoundland, Canada. Out over the spot where the Titanic has rested for more than a century, on the surface sits a ship called the Polar Prince. It's the support vessel, the mother ship. Its job is to carry the Titan out to the dive site, launch it, stay in contact with it through the dive, and be there to recover it when it comes back up. Because here is something a lot of people don't realize. The Titan could not simply radio the surface the way you'd imagine. Radio waves don't travel through deep water, so the only way the sub and the ship could communicate was through short text messages, sent back and forth through the water using sound. That was it. No voices, no live video feed to the surface. Just brief lines of text pinging up and down through 2 miles of ocean. Remember that, because it shapes everything that happens next. Inside the Titan that morning were 5 people, and I want you to know who they were by name, because in all the talk of hulls and timelines, it's easy to forget that these were 5 real people with families, hopes, and a whole life behind each of them. Stockton Rush was 58. Hamish Harding was 58 as well, a man who had been to space and to the deepest point in the ocean, a genuine adventurer. Paul Henry Nargeolet was 77. A legend in the world of deep-sea exploration, a man who had visited the Titanic more times than almost anyone on Earth, and who by all accounts went out of a pure and lifelong love for that wreck. Shahzada Dawood was 48, and his son, Suleiman, was just 19. A university student, by some accounts nervous about the dive, who reportedly went partly because it fell on a weekend near Father's Day, and he wanted to share it with his dad. Hold on to that. A 19-year-old boy and his father side by side in the last hours of a shared adventure. They climbed in through the single hatch at the front. And then the crew on deck did something that I still find hard to think about. They sealed that hatch from the outside with 17 bolts. Once those bolts were in, the 5 people inside could not get out. Not on their own. Not for any reason. They were now completely dependent on the surface to let them out again. And with that, the Titan was lowered into the water, and the last dive began. And I want you to really picture the place they were going, because it's easy to say 2 miles down and not feel it. The descent to the Titanic takes about 2 hours. In the first few minutes, there's still light, a blue glow filtering down through the water, the surface still visible above, but it fades fast. Within a few hundred feet, the blue turns to a deep, cold twilight. A little further, and the last of the light is gone completely, and the sub is falling through absolute darkness. A blackness so total that the only thing the passengers can see is whatever the sub's own lights touch. And beyond that, nothing. The water outside grows colder, down toward near freezing, and the pressure builds and builds and builds, the entire weight of 2 miles of ocean pressing in on that carbon fiber tube from every direction. This is the most hostile environment on the face of the planet. And 5 people were sinking down into it, sealed in a space smaller than the inside of a minivan, sitting on the floor with a single small window to look through. And for the first stretch, everything seemed normal. The Titan and the Polar Prince exchanged messages as the sub sank. Position updates, depth checks, routine back and forth, the kind they'd done on other dives. For roughly the first 40 minutes, the communication flowed the way it was supposed to. The sub was going down. The ship was tracking it. 5 people were descending toward the most famous shipwreck on Earth, and as far as anyone could tell, it was just another dive. But then, small problems started to appear in the messages. And this is where, looking back, the timeline begins to tighten. At a certain point in the descent, the surface crew were repeatedly asking the Titan a simple question. Essentially, can you still see us on your display? Can you still see the ship's position? It's a basic navigation check, and the Titan's answers started to suggest something was glitching. At one point, the sub reported that it had lost part of its systems, its display, its chat settings, little technical hiccups. The kind of thing that, on its own, might mean nothing. Electronics act up, screens freeze. On a normal day, you'd shrug it off. And then, at around 10:15 in the morning, after the ship asked once more whether everything was okay, the Titan sent back those words, yes, and all good here. That was the reassurance. That was the message that told the surface there was nothing to worry about. Whatever little glitches were happening, the people inside believed they were fine. They were still descending, still heading for the Titanic, still in their own minds on a normal dive. If this is holding you, if you feel the weight of what's coming, do me a favor and hit subscribe right now. It genuinely keeps this channel alive. And we are almost at the moment everything changed. Because now we reach the end of the timeline. And it happens fast. The Titan kept sinking. It was now somewhere around 1 hour and 45 minutes into the dive. Deep, deep down. Well past the point where any light reaches, closing in on the depth of the Titanic itself. And at this point, the surface received one final message from the sub. A short one. A routine sounding line about the vessel's weights. To understand it, you need to know one quick thing about how the Titan worked. To sink, the sub carried heavy weights. To rise back up, it dropped those weights so it could float toward the surface. Dropping weights was a normal part of a dive. It's how you control your depth, and it's how you begin your ascent. And the last message the Titan ever sent said that it had dropped 2 of its weights. Less than a second later, contact was lost. No goodbye, no alarm, no distress call. Just that one short line about the weights, and then the connection to the Titan went silent and stayed silent. The pings that the Polar Prince had been tracking simply stopped. One moment, there was a submarine down there, exchanging messages, carrying 5 living people toward the Titanic. The next moment, there was nothing at all. At roughly that same time, far away, sensitive underwater listening equipment picked up something in the ocean, a sound, an acoustic signature consistent with an implosion coming from the area where the Titan was diving. At the time, no one on the surface knew what it was. It would be days before that piece of the puzzle was understood. But in hindsight, that sound was almost certainly the Titan itself. The moment the hull gave way, and the ocean crushed the vessel completely in a fraction of a second. Which brings us back to that final message. Because this is the detail almost no one noticed at the time. And I want to be careful and honest about it because we are dealing with real people and we don't know everything with certainty. But investigators and observers have wondered about it ever since. The Titan's last message said it had dropped 2 weights. Dropping weights is what you do when you want to go up. So one haunting possibility is that this was a completely routine part of the dive, just normal weight management on the way down. But another possibility, the one that's hard to shake, is that in those final moments, the people inside had sensed that something was wrong. That maybe they'd heard something, felt something, and that dropping the weights was the very beginning of an attempt to turn around, to abort the dive and get back to the surface. We may never know for certain, but if that's what it was, then the terrible truth is that they ran out of time almost the instant they tried. The implosion came less than a second after that message. Whatever they knew, or sensed, or feared in those last moments, there was no time. The ocean was simply faster than any of them could ever have been. And this is the part that I think matters most, and the part I want to hold on to with real care, because of the physics of what happened. The hull failing at that depth, the implosion happening faster than the human nervous system can even register. The end, for all 5 of them, would have come before they could have known it was happening. Faster than thought, faster than fear. In a place of total darkness 2 miles down, the vessel simply ceased to exist, and it took less than the blink of an eye. In a disaster with almost no mercy in it anywhere, that is the one small mercy. It was instant, but the world above didn't know any of that yet. And this is the cruelest part of the whole timeline. Up on the surface, when the Titan went silent, the crew of the Polar Prince didn't assume the worst. Why would they? Communication glitches had happened before. Maybe the sub had just lost its messaging system again. Maybe it was still down there, fine, on its way to the Titanic, simply out of contact. So they waited, and the hours ticked by. And when the Titan didn't surface at the time it was supposed to, a search began. An enormous, frantic, international search that gripped the entire world for 4 days. Ships, planes, robots, headlines counting down the sub's dwindling oxygen supply. And all of that time, every hour of that 4-day search, every news bulletin, every desperate calculation of how much air was left. The 5 people everyone was searching for had already been gone since that first morning, since the moment of that final message. The world was searching for a submarine that no longer existed. It's one of the most haunting facts of the entire disaster. The tragedy was already complete before the search for it had even begun. If this story is meaning something to you, and you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. It's the single biggest thing that keeps this channel going, and there is more of this story still to tell. Now step back and look at the whole dive from above. 5 people climbed into a small submarine on a bright June morning, sealed in from the outside, chasing a dream, to see the Titanic with their own eyes. For nearly 2 hours, they sank toward it through the dark, exchanging quiet, ordinary messages with the ship above. All good here. A few small glitches, a note about the weights. And then, in a single instant, an hour and 45 minutes into the dive, it was over. So fast that the surface didn't even know. So fast that the people inside couldn't have known either. A routine descent right up until the last second, when it wasn't. And here is where this story reaches back across 111 years to the ship they were diving to see. Because we have heard this before. The Titanic, too, had a night that felt completely routine, right up until the moment it wasn't. Passengers went to bed on a calm, still ocean, certain they were aboard the safest ship ever built. The warnings came in, ISIS head, and were set aside because everything felt fine. And then, in the space of a few hours, the unthinkable. The Titan's final dive was the same story, compressed into an hour and 45 minutes. The calm, the confidence, the small warnings brushed away. And then the sudden, total arrival of the thing no one believed could happen. A father and his son, an ocean that felt safe. And the oldest lesson the sea ever teaches, learnt again in the coldest possible way, that the water does not care how sure of yourself you are. That is the final dive of the Titan. Not a monster story, not a mystery, just 5 people sinking toward a shipwreck, sending ordinary messages, until the ocean closed the book in less than a second, on the very patch of sea where the Titanic has been waiting, in the dark, for over 100 years. If this told you something you didn't know, if sitting inside that timeline changed how you understand this disaster, then please subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell. It's the one thing that keeps this work going, and we're building the complete record of the Titan and the great tragedies of the sea, one story at a time. I want you here for all of it. The sea keeps its secrets, but one by one, we're bringing them back up, and I want to hear from you on this one. That final message about the weights, do you think it was just a routine part of the dive? Or do you believe they sensed something was wrong and were trying to come home? Tell me down in the comments. I read every single one, and I'll see you in the deep.